Rubber bullets and tear gas canisters flying here and there were what some of the presidential candidates had to endure during the 2021 presidential race. Sometimes there were bullets to dodge, and some of them, unfortunately, pierced through the flesh of those within the vicinity. Both Major General Mugisha Muntu, a founding member of the Alliance for National Transformation (ANT), and Patrick Amuriat Oboi, the president of the Forum for Democratic Change (FDC), presented themselves in the 2021 election in an attempt to stop President Museveni's uninterrupted reign.
You participated in the last presidential election. What was your experience like as a presidential candidate?
The 2021 electoral exercise was quite ugly.
The ugliness Muntu talks about stems from the strict COVID-19 regulations the government, through the Ministry of Health, put in place to safeguard the public. The measures require the observance of social distancing and restrictions against large gatherings. With the ball now in the hands of the Electoral Commission, campaign gatherings were banned in preference for campaign meetings not exceeding 200 people. A battlefront had been opened, as this soon turned into a subject of the bloody confrontations between the security forces and some of the presidential candidates who seldom followed the guidelines.
Put General Museveni to rest. Give him a technical knockout through the phone.
The former presidential candidates hardly believed that restrictions had anything to do with public protection.
And General Museveni opportunistically used COVID to have controls in a number of ways that were irregular and that were only in favor of his candidature and not of the others.
Muntu and Amuriat reflect on the should have been democratic exercise in total disbelief and prefer to call it something else instead of an election.
We did not have an election. What played out was a military operation against candidates where we were not allowed, especially those in the opposition, to go to places in accordance with our programs that had been issued to the Electoral Commission.
For Amuriat, who walked barefoot and it became his signature campaign throughout the period, in protest against how he was intercepted by the security personnel and in an unacceptable manner delivered to Kyambogo University grounds for nomination, being arrested in the course of the campaigns was something he expected during each day of the campaigns.
I found myself in such an awkward situation where we had to go out fighting with the military and the police many times, up to about 45 times in 65 days allowed for the campaigns. I was arrested and locked up, and as I speak today, there are about 10 cases, I would say, politically motivated cases across the country that I have got to attend to.
However, the climax of it all was the November 18, 2020 protests in Kampala and other towns triggered by the Luhuka arrest of the president of the National Unity Platform, Robert Kyagulanyi, who was also presidential candidate in the race.
How would you push a presidential candidate like that?
Official count by the government of those killed in the violent protest stood at 54 people. These acts would prompt all other opposition players to call off their campaigns.
That was also quite ugly, because about 100 people plus lost their lives. And the manipulation, stopping candidates from accessing some areas. So it was absolutely contrary to what would be expected in having a free, fair, transparent electoral process.
Despite the harsh realities of the campaigns that some of the presidential candidates suffered, Muntu intends to have his name printed on the 2026 ballot. He has since been nominated to vie for the ANT presidential flag.
By nature of struggles in life, there is no area of struggle where when you give up that you can reach your objectives. You can't. Giving up is never an option for those who succeed. You keep fighting until victory.
On the other hand, Amuriat had similar intentions until he stepped aside following FDC party internal harmonization to front Nandala Mafabi as the preferred presidential candidate in the next year's election.
Your letter of withdrawal, it is here.
This is amidst their skepticism that the status quo will change.
Whereas we are going into this election without electoral reforms, we think that it's going to be business as usual. And therefore, one would ask, why are you going to this election even without the reforms? We feel that this is an opportunity for us to speak to the public.
Even now, we are going to this election much as many people think that it is a foregone conclusion. It is not. Nobody is in charge of the dynamics of change, you know. So we are going in to organize ourselves and also trusting that the population can see sense in what we are saying. And if they recognize that unless we terminate General Museveni's presidency now, that the likelihood that we will plunge into chaos in the future, if they understand that, this could be the last election that General Museveni could have.
Although the political players maintain the need for electoral reforms ahead of the 2026 elections, some pundits have argued that it could be a little too late to have meaningful reforms that will be implemented successfully within the 2 months left to the start of the campaigns. Jackson Onyango, NTV.